Hi, welcome to Greystone Demonstration Garden. I'm Master Gardener George Pessin. Last time we talked about location, where to put our garden and the importance of southern exposure. Today we're going to talk about what to grow in. We have three choices. We have containers, we have in-ground beds, or we have raised beds. Everybody can grow in a container, whether you have a patio or a balcony or a backyard, you can grow in containers. So first, let's talk about the container itself. Traditionally, containers are going to be ceramic, wood, plastic. It can really be anything that has a hole at the bottom. You can really show your creativity and your aesthetic by the container that you choose. So a typical size container, this right here is a 5-gallon container. That's about the smallest size I would go with. You can definitely go smaller, but what's going to happen is they're going to dry out quicker. Also, it would be best to go with lighter colors. Darker colors tend to get too hot in the summer, and and especially with a small, dark container, they could fry your roots. The next consideration is what kind of soil for the container. Do not use soil from the garden. It's too dense. There could be weeds, seeds in it. There could be disease in it. So we use something called potting soil. Potting soil is loose, it is disease-free, it is weed-free. Okay. Then, once we have our soil, we can plant just about anything from arugula to zucchini. Anything will be fine for a container. Consideration is that the containers need a full sun, just like I mentioned last week, and they need space to grow. So for something like this size container, that would be good for one tomato plant, one eggplant. Okay, so now when you're watering your container, I want you to water it till the water comes out the bottom and goes into that little tray. Number one, watering deeply encourages the roots to grow deeply, to grow further down to meet where the water is. When it collects in the tray, a mature plant will actually soak up the water from the tray. Just in case it sits in the tray for over an hour, you should dump it out. Also, a consideration about container plants, which a lot of people miss, is they need to be fertilized. You should be fertilizing your container plants on a regular basis. It can be every week, it can be every other week, but get into a routine of giving your plants the nutrients it needs in order to thrive. Okay, next are raised beds. What you see behind me are raised beds. Here at Greystone, that's what we use, raised beds. Raised beds allows you to control the soil because the soil line is actually above the regular soil line. So some people have very bad soil. It's either doesn't drain well or it's very hard with clay. And so to be able to get more control, we use raised beds. Typically the material that we use for a raised bed is cedar would be first choice and redwood would be second choice. These are natural woods. We can also use things like plastic lumber, which lasts for a long time. Do not use any treated wood, no railway ties. Cinder blocks are good. Then for the soil for a raised bed, we would use 50% compost or manure and then 50% topsoil. That would be a good starting point. Okay. Size of a raised bed. Typical size are 4 feet by 8 feet. Why? Because a board comes in 12-foot length. So you make one cut for the 4 foot and then you have an 8 foot. Then you make another cut with another board 4 foot, 8 foot, and 8 foot, and now you have your 4 sides. 4 feet is good that your arm is about 2 feet long, so you can get into the middle of the bed without stepping into the bed. You don't want to step on the soil. That's a bad thing. And also, if you happen to be gardening with kids, you want to do maybe 3 feet by 8 feet instead of 4 feet, but that's totally up to you. Back here, we have the cages on the beds. That's to keep out pests. This fencing here keeps out the rodents, but it does allow bees through. And it's also small enough that it keeps out grasshoppers, which we also have a problem. Lastly, we have in-ground beds. In-ground beds is literally planting right in the ground. So, for those who have a big backyard and want to turn it into a mini farm, yeah, you would plant right in the ground. So the first consideration is, what do we do about the grass? We need to get rid of the grass. So I'm going to tell you a couple of methods we can do. First is solarize it. We do that by laying down plastic. And in about a few weeks, the sunlight will burn the weeds. No water gets to it, so it'll die. And then at that point, we can either scrape it off, or another way we can get rid of the grass is to use a rototiller. A rototiller is an hydraulic machine that churns the soil to about 6 to 8 inches below the ground. Another method that we use with in-ground gardening that you don't have to get rid of the grass, it's called sheet mulching. And the thinking here is that you lay a piece of cardboard or some stacked newspaper in that area, okay? And then on top of that, we put compost. And then on top of that, we put kitchen scraps like lettuce and peels of bananas and all our different organic waste. But we want to make it so it's about 8 inches. We water it. We wait a couple of weeks. It'll settle. And then we plant right into that raised mound. That's a good method if for the more lazier gardener, I should say. Okay, so those are our 3 methods that we're going to grow in. I hope you stay with us. We'll see you next time.